Hey, Newsa-Cast listeners. Just want to give you a little information about the mission of the Newsa-Cast. Our mission stems from the mission of the Red Smith Banquet, and that mission was to support youth sports in the Fox Valley. Over the 57 years of its existence, we've been honored to give out over $1 million to various youth sports organizations throughout the Fox Valley. The Newsa-Cast is looking to continue that mission and support youth sports as well. You can help us do that by donating to the Newsa-Cast and the Red Smith Sports Banquet.
On today's Newsa-Cast, we continue our series of safety in football. We dive into the Kato Collar. Jeff Chambers from Guardian Athletics. Jeff has an incredible story. Tosh and I take an old look at new, which is brought to you by Raleigh Winter and Associates. Our Red Smith Banquet throwback. We go back to 2013. Mark Murphy, Packer president. And Tosh and I end the show like we always do with a little It's Forgotten and I'm Never Forgetting. So what do you say, folks? Let's get this show on the road.
When I started this whole process, I didn't know that my collar would work for a brain. It's not the contact, it's the movement of the head,
right,
and the movement of the brain that causes force to be elicited.
Welcome to the Newsa-Cast. What is a Newsa-Cast? It's where we bring local folk stories to life through conversation.
All right, Newsa-Cast listeners, welcome to another episode of the Newsa-Cast. This week we take part two, looking at football safety and the changing of football, and how we talk a lot in last week's episode with Clint about the basically attack on football. This week we get another look at safety in football, right, Joe?
Yeah, we certainly do, Tosh. We had a chance to sit down with Jeff Chambers. Actually, an incredible story. Again, to plug this podcast, it's why we love doing this, because I knew what the Kato Collar wasn't really sure who Jeff Chambers was, except that he invented this Kato Collar. Come to find out, the guy's got 40 plus years as an athletic trainer, running big time college D1 programs, head trainer, works with, USFL, goes on gigs with them for the season, UFL. Can't even speak that, but you know what I mean. This guy's legit, and it was really, really cool to dig into his story and understand, how do you become an inventor? How do you negotiate patents? All of that. So it was kind of cool, Tosh, and it's really why you and I love doing this podcast.
Yeah, I'm excited. I tell the listener I was not in that interview. I was still coming back from lacrosse tournaments, so I wasn't able to join. But I'm looking forward to listening to that. And the Construct boys took third for regional, so they had a nice showing again. And the summer lacrosse season is winding down. We have one more week here as we speak and record. And guess what starts next week, Joe?
Football, Tosh. Football. Yes.
Contact days start with a lot of programs. I know the FVL football, which is Ethan is part of. They have contact days next week, and then they head to MLC next weekend, Martin Luther College, in New Ulm, Minnesota, and they have like a 2 or 3 day basically scrimmage with another team and practices and staying in the dorms and a little team building. It's kind of a nice setup. It's a long drive. It's not a fun drive, but I think it's a good way to build that team. So football starts next week officially for Ethan, and out of one pan and into the other.
I remember you saying that's a cool thing for high school. That's a great bonding trip, and that's pretty cool to travel and have an overnighter. Not many teams do that. And yeah, you're right. I mentioned it last week too. I still kind of feel that itch, like I should be doing something football related. You can just start to kind of feel that in the air, and it's finally coming. And 1st of August, right after Mile of Music, all the high schools report, and then you got your scrimmage day and the game, and Shoot, Tosh, you're going to be back to work before you know it.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about that. But what also starts the 22nd is Packer training camp.
Yeah.
So even the professionals are getting going now, and everything is taking place, and we get to see those practices. And, you know, we talk about the change in football as far as safety and, you know, some of the things that we're doing as far as teaching kids tackling and different things like that. But we've had some major changes in professional football as well, even how training camps are set up and the contact days and different things like that. So, I mean, there's been a push from the top down to really help protect this sport. And it is a beautiful sport. It's fun. I love watching it on Sundays. So this is going to be fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, it fundamentally changed in philosophies of the fundamental. In a rule book, there's always the fundamentals of football, you know, the basic things. And we've changed the fundamentals a little bit, and rightfully so. And that's what's so great about these two episodes, because it's a good mix. We talk a little bit about the rules. We talk about, and Jeff does a fantastic job tying in the helmets, the Kato Collar, the shoulder pads, the trifecta, those three things, how they just protect the head and understand impact, you know, and then coupled with what we kept talking about, the coaches are teaching it different, you know, the penalties for the different fouls, the illegal fouls, the penalties are more severe, you know, so all of this stuff coupled together is, yes, the game's a little bit different. You're not going to have guys bleeding, but I tell you what, the speed is insane. The athleticism is insane. The offense, the scoring. I mean, some would argue this is the golden age of football. Yeah,
absolutely. It's good to hear all these this stuff going on, and you have a great interview, so that is awesome. And you know, we have some other things to talk about that are going on in our area as well. And one of those is this coming weekend. Actually, it's Thursday, Friday, and Saturday is a Paper Fest at Sunset Park in Kimberly.
Unbelievable community event. It's free. All of these bands. I mean, it's an incredible lineup of bands. Shout out to our house band, our favorite band, Digstown. They're playing Saturday night on the original stage at 5:00. That's actually a really good lineup around them. Jeremiah about Jams. That's a great jam band, local band. They play at 3:15, and Iftica, same thing. Groovy absolutely. Band. They play at 7. I've never heard of Sneezy, but they're the headline at 9:15.
All right.
Yeah. But
I'll be in Madison, Joe, but you can tell me how they do.
Yeah, it all depends on if I'm delivering mail or not, how I feel. But it's even Sunday too. It's Sunday afternoon. There's actually some pretty good bands as well. So I'm not sure. We'll see. But regardless, if you're around, that's free. I went last year. It's a fantastic event, and there's a lot of great events, Tosh, around. The farmers markets are going strong. There is literally music every night. You know, we've talked downtown a mile of music. Well, Wednesday nights you can get it at the Paper Valley. Thursday nights at Jones Park. I mean, there's music anywhere you look. All the local bars. I talked about a couple here over the last couple of weeks. I mean, there's music everywhere. That's what's awesome.
Absolutely.
Shout out Lily Fouts. She keeps pumping out new music as well. I think she's off to school, I saw, but she's super active on social, and we got connected on our Newsa-Cast and her. So, you know, connected on a social level. So it's kind of fun to see that interaction.
Yeah. And before we know it, Mile of Music will be happening. So that'll be coming up, and hopefully we have some fun things in store for Mile of Music as well. And, you know, you forgot one venue that we always like to shout out as well, and that's Ledgestone Vineyard.
Yes.
Their Thursday night music, their Wind Down series is amazing. If you didn't get tickets and go out and see who's ever playing. But they also have music, free music. I think Wednesday night jazz, and they have music on Saturday and Sunday as well. So go out and check out some of that free music and enjoy just a beautiful venue and surroundings with the vineyard. Check that out as well. Yeah,
absolutely. It's gosh, there's so much music, so many great places to see it. I love it. Anything else happen this week exciting for you?
No, not really. Just the All-Star game as we're recording this is going to be going on. So I'm looking forward to watching Major League All-Star game.
Yeah.
The Brewers went into their usual like pre-All-Star game swoon, and it wasn't a huge swoon, but they've a tendency to kind of lose some games before the All-Star break. But hopefully they can come out on fire, get some of these guys back. I know Devin Williams was in town for the Timber Rattlers this past weekend pitching. You get a closer like that back. That's a great free agent pickup.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I gotta pay attention to baseball again, Tosh. I just I don't, but the Brewers. It's a long season, Tosh. You're gonna have your ups and downs. So let's get hot starting in August and ride that right into the fall.
There you go. Well, Speaking of riding things, we might as well get riding this episode.
Yeah, let's ride that wave. Let's do that. Let's ride. It's that time again, once again, for an old look at new, brought to you by Raleigh Winter and Associates, celebrating 55 years. Did you know that in 1962, an Appleton junior high school teacher with a strong work ethic started a residential realty company? His name, Raleigh Winter. 3 generations later, the Winters still hold true to a strong work ethic and an excellent reputation in the community. Today, Raleigh Winter and Associates remain actively involved in providing retail, office, and industrial users an affordable, well-designed working environment through the creation and or acquisition of quality real estate in the Fox cities and even beyond new. So what do you say? Let's take an old look at new.
Hey, Newscast listeners, it is time for the old look at new, a chance for us to take a little bit of a look at history around the area in the state of Wisconsin. So, Joe, what do you have for an old look at new?
Well, Tosh, I was going through my notes. I remember last year, right around this time, we mentioned the last, the last Grateful Dead show in 1995 at Soldier Field. That happened July 9th in 1995. But I'm not gonna regurgitate that. But I am gonna stay in the city of Chicago, and this one is personal to me, Tosh. And again, I'm about 2 weeks late on this, but on July 6th, 1983. You and I were recording on the night of the All-Star games being played tonight, and that was the 50th Major League All-Star game. It was played at the old Comiskey Park, and I was there with my dad and Tosh. You'll remember Mike Reese, Brett Reese. The 4 of us went down there, stayed at my Aunt Phyllis's. I think you and I stayed there a few times as well. And went to that's one of my first great memories of Major League Baseball. 13-year-old kid going to the All-Star game. That was the year that Freddie Lynn hits the grand slam to win the game. I mean, you talk about electric atmosphere there for batting practice. Ron Kittle launching balls onto the roof of old Comiskey. You're like this, Tosh. Nobody here is going to understand my dad's humor, but a little Danny O humor. He said, he looks at me, he said, we're closer to the loop than we are to home plate. Our seats weren't the best, but
nice. Yeah,
that was pretty funny. But that was just majestic, and it's something. Maybe I should use this as my never forgotten either. Never forgetting, Tosh. But baseball has a way of just capturing you, right? With the All-Star game, I'm sure. Yeah. They'll do it tonight. But when baseball's on and spotlight and majestic, it draws you in, Tosh.
Yeah, it is by far the best All-Star game out of all the sports. Hockey's trying to reinvent going to 3-on-3 and playing different things like that. Basketball has done some things, and football, really, there isn't one anymore.
Right.
So, it's the great American pastime is baseball. It's the All-Star game, and it's always a blast. It's always fun to watch. And even if you don't have players from your team in, it's still a good time, and they're doing a lot of things, miking up guys during the game and stuff like that. So it's cool. It's a great event.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to shout out just to that 1983 50th All-Star game. It was just being there. I have a poster that actually hangs in my quote Newsa-Cast studio that still reminds me of that day, Tosh. And
nice.
Yeah. Ballpark of past days on the south side of Chicago.
That is true.
Well, Tosh, I'm going to get out of Chicago and hand it off to you. What are you going to take a look at this week?
Well, actually, we are going to go down to Chicago in a way and make our way down there. But July 18th, 1921, a gentleman by the name of Lloyd Wilder became the first champion for the University of Wisconsin in the very first NCAA track and field meet that was held at University of Chicago.
Nice.
And he cleared 12 feet in the pole vault. And his legendary coach, Tom Jones, he served as a track coach at UW from 1913 to 1948.
Nice. Did he sing after that?
Yeah. What's New Pussycat? There you go. He initiated that very first NCAA meet. And he later went inducted into the National Track and Field Hall of Fame in 1977. So
that's a good one.
Yeah. First champion in track and field in 1921.
1921. What a year. Danny O was born in 1921, Tosh.
Nice. There you go.
That's right. That's right. All right, Tosh. I love it. Well, let's get back here to Northeast Wisconsin. Tosh, that was our old look at new, brought to you by Raleigh Winter and Associates. All right, folks. Our interview today, I had a chance to sit down with an amazing guy, Jeff Chambers from Guardian Athletics. He started this company, and he also invented the Kato Collar. You'll understand what that is, but it's a safety device in football. He's been an athletic trainer at the highest levels, both the professional level and the Division I level in college, run big time programs. So Tosh wasn't able to make this one, so it was just Jeff and me. So enjoy a conversation with Jeff Chambers. Well, so Mike Draheim, mutual friend, he connected you and me. He connected Clint Brightman, who we had on last week. So this has turned into a really cool 2-series episode where we're talking safety in football, making football safer. That's incredible. But Mike goes, so this podcast was born out of the Red Smith Banquet, which was around for 57 years. And Mike, through his, Accelerate, he was a big fan of it. He always bought a sponsor table. In fact, Mike Draheim hosted Bill Walton, who was here 2 years ago at our very last Red Smith Banquet in 2022. We had Bill Walton here, and Bill sat at Mike's table. And Mike's got some great Bill Walton stories, R.I.P. Bill Walton. But, Mike's just been a great supporter. I mean, I've known him a long time through that banquet, and then you just see what he's done. But you bring up an awesome starting point. I like to know a few things about the guests that are going to come on and just, understand their story. And you have an absolutely incredible story. But Mike's response back to me was, I owe a lot to what I'm doing today to Jeff. He was my athletic trainer my first couple of years at school. And then he brought the Accelerate program to Oshkosh, where Mike started training athletes in April of 2000. So, I mean, you had a direct impact on his life and a mentor, and that's really cool.
Yeah, he's Mike ran track, and I met him through that. And then he wanted to study to be an athletic trainer, and came on and helped us out as an athletic training student at UW Oshkosh for a couple of years, and then moved off into certified strength conditioning specialist. And it's amazing to me, I told him once when I was there, I'm so proud of you, what you've done. And, to step out on his own and take that program to Appleton when it kind of died down in Oshkosh because of different things that happened, and just rename it the way he named it, and has done what he's done with the athletes in the Fox Valley is just amazing. It's been a long relationship, and we try to hook up when he comes and sees his brother up here, and he knows his stuff.
Yes.
And he knows how to motivate young people. and he's done a great job. He had a great work ethic in college, and he's just continued to just develop and become better. And I think what Mike does so well, which is what I've always tried to teach athletic training students, is you never know enough. And if you're not learning, you're not progressing.
I mean, that's true with everything in life, isn't it? That's such a true statement.
Yeah. So, and that's how I guess with my career, I just keep trying to learn, you know. I mean, I'm 65 years old and been doing this for, I don't know, 42 years now. I've been certified. So,
and that's really a good starting point. I mean, 40 plus years you're doing this. I mean, for one, did you ever envision your life turning out this way, that athletic training, this career, you know, would evolve into, you know, working with USFL teams, inventing? I mean, you invented something that we're certainly going to get into, but I mean, gosh, you're an inventor of a product that's life changing. You know, I mean, it's just nuts. When I texted you early today about your career is insane. I mean, it truly is, through those 42 years, what you've accomplished in athletic training. I mean, did you envision that 45 years ago?
No, I didn't envision, you know, what's happened. It's interesting though, because I remember when I was graduating from undergrad, and my undergrad took 6 years because I'm not very smart. And so I took
right there with you.
It took a double major, and I graduated with 172 hours from my undergrad. And so it took me a while because I got back then they were just starting the athletic training curriculums, and at the University of Nebraska it was in the last year of getting accredited, so it was still, we were going through and becoming an accredited program, an internship program. So I had to take courses, get my bachelor's degree, and I got it in secondary education in biology and physical education, and then I took the courses for the athletic training. So it took me a while, and I was there one night just at home by myself. I was married at the time. My wife and I got married in 82, and I was graduating in 83. And I was like, Lord, wouldn't it just be easier just to go into ministry to serve you? And it was like the Lord just said to me, I have people like you in places where I have them, so other people will know me too.
Sure.
And from that point on, I've just been an athletic trainer and knew that was where God wanted me. And I've just, you know, I was in Oshkosh for 9 years, and I was here at Minnesota State University for, I was 17 years here. And then I branched off to try to get my product going. And, you know, 5 years later, I was going to go to work in the USFL and be an assistant athletic trainer for the Philadelphia Stars of the United States Football League.
Sure.
And the guy I was going to be assistant for was one of my former graduate assistants here at Minnesota State. Well, his goal is to eventually be a Division I head athletic trainer in football. And he got offered associate head athletic trainer job at the University of Miami, Ohio. So he took that job like a week before the USFL was starting, and Kevin O'Neill, the director of athletic training, calls me up and basically says, based on the battlefield, you're now the head athletic trainer for the Philadelphia Stars. And it ended up being the same thing this year. The person that was the Panthers last year, who I had worked with, because the Stars and the Panthers were both housed in Ann Arbor, Michigan. We practiced at Eastern Michigan, played our home games at Ford Field in Detroit. He couldn't come back this year because of some family things that happened late. And he called up and said the same thing to me. Based on the battlefield, you're now the head athletic trainer for the Michigan Panthers. So I've had two years at professional football level, which never thought would ever happen.
Right.
And so...
What is that job like? I mean, that's got to be, that's pretty much a 24/7 type job, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, it's a 5-month position. I went out on February 15th, worked through them till the end of June. 10-week season, 4 weeks of preseason training camp, and it's a 14-hour, 12 to 14-hour day job, especially during camp.
Sure,
Slows down a little once the season gets started, but I probably spent, I was at work every morning at 6, and the earliest I usually got home, there was a couple days I got home at 5:30.
Are you just living in a hotel room, basically?
Well, I lived in a hotel last year at USFL when I was with the Stars all year. This year, we were put up in the hotel through a preseason training camp, and then you get a $400 a week allowance for housing. So my two assistants and one of the ops guys who I knew from last year, we all lived together in an Airbnb for about 3.5 months. So,
Sure.
Yeah, it was a fun experience, you know.
Oh, I'll bet. Do the athletes, do the guys at that level, I mean, do they have kind of their own plan developed? Are you managing their plan? Are you putting them on a plan that fits your criteria? How does that work at a professional level?
At our level, we tried to help them any way we could. You know, some of the injuries we treated and took care of in the athletic training room. Then you have some guys that go on injured reserve, and you got 3 people trying to take care of 50 professional athletes once the season started. You know, if a guy goes on injured reserve, he's out for 5 weeks.
Yeah.
So they had a physical therapy place there called the Performance Center where we could send the athletes, and they would go there for the rehab, and some of them would go there and come to the training room and we'd work with them. So
sure,
it was a matter of working together to try to get the individual back to playing. So.
I know we're talking safety in football, but I mean, the cold hard reality is, I mean, pretty much all of these guys have got to be pretty beat up as the season goes on, aren't they? Just it's got to be just maintaining just the aches and pains have got to be.
Oh, yeah. I mean, trying to help them and keep them on the field the best we can. And they, you know, a lot of them have been doing it for a while. So they have, you know, the guys that are taking care of themselves because they're getting ready before every practice. You see that. And most of them do a pretty good job of trying to stay ready for practice. Because, I mean, during preseason, we were going 6 days on, you know, 2-hour practices. 6 days a week, and 1 day off. And so, I mean, that takes a toll because you don't realize it till you're at that level, but they're all such great athletes. And the speed, you know, that they're practicing at, and you know, you start out with 75 players and it cuts down to 50. They're all trying to make the team.
Right.
So they're working their tails off. They're playing hard, you know, all the time. It's 100%.
That's impressive, isn't it? There's nothing better to watch than just a great athlete do their thing.
Yeah, and I guess that was, you know, working where I've worked in the past. I've worked with, you know, I had the blessing, I guess, of how I would put it, or the privilege to work with Adam Thielen at Minnesota State, also Chris Reed, who's been on the Vikings roster. And so those were 2 players that I had the opportunity to work with here. And to see those athletes and then see almost every athlete you're working with out there at that caliber, the speed of the game. And yeah, it's been a great learning experience and amazing to watch.
I think unless you're actually on the field, I don't think people can really appreciate, you're right, just the speed of which this game is happening at and being played at.
Oh, that was the first scrimmage we had my first year against the Panthers, and we were indoor at a facility. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
You know, the speed was unbelievable. And it wasn't even a full contact thing, but it was, it opened my eyes, and I'm like, because of that, you see certain injuries occur that you haven't seen before. You know, I haven't seen those before.
Right.
And I mean, the mechanism of injury, some of the mechanisms of injury that I saw were amazing. And they're such good athletes. Like we have one guy 2 years ago came off and he says, you know, my shoulder just doesn't feel right. And I mean, he had all the strength and everything. And basically he just didn't feel like he could go. And we didn't know for sure. The physician looked at him, got back an MRI, and he had a complete pec major tear.
Oh, wow.
He was so strong in how, you know, he had worked and built up. You couldn't find a weakness, you know.
So the muscles around it were compensating for the injury?
Yes, compensating. But he knew there was something wrong.
Yeah.
And, he didn't feel comfortable. And I've had that happen a couple times where you're like, man, I can't figure this out. And you think you do, and come back and you end up getting the testing. You're like, wow,
And he was able to play through that and perform at a high level.
Yeah, he was out for about 2 to 3 weeks, and we rehabbed him back, and he came back and played at a high level.
Yeah.
At a high level. And most people with that injury, you're looking at 6 weeks at least. Ones that don't have to have surgery, you're looking for at least 6 weeks.
Sure.
He was back playing in about three and a half weeks.
You hear just periodically stories like that. I mean, is that just pure genetics, luck, faith, whatever? I mean, how does a guy do that? Come back so quickly?
I think it's because I think their ability, they've been blessed with, an ability to play the game. And they're unique athletes. They're very good athletes. I mean, when you look at all the people that are trying to get into the NFL, and I'm not sure how many will get signed this year out of the United Football League, but last year out of the United States Football League, there was 103 out of 400 players that signed NFL contracts going into camp. So the players are good.
It's insane. It's incredible how good they are. Before you were speaking about injuries, and I for some reason I often think about this. Over your 40 years, I mean, there must be kind of an evolution of injuries. Are you seeing different kinds of injuries? Is it related to just the way athletes train over the years, just the way their bodies are getting built different than they were 20 years ago? I mean, has that led to more ACL injuries or more whatever injuries? I don't know if it is or not. I think the injuries we've seen, I think that they train so hard and I've seen more of the lower leg and hamstring strains and the hip flexor strains than I've seen in a long time. Yeah.
I think that's occurring at all levels. And I think it's some of how we've changed some of our training over the years. Everything's explosive. We've gone away a lot from single leg or, single motion movements. Everything's about explosion and closed chain. And we've gone away from some open chain strengthening, I think, that does affect some of the injuries that occur.
Right. How does that, this might be a dumb question, and I'm no one to ask those, but how does a change like that happen over time? And how does the focus suddenly go towards that and maybe away from?
I think it goes toward that because you have, we learn more and more about the physiology and anatomy of our bodies. So everybody, it's like, I want to compare this to an ACL. I've rehabbed anterior cruciate ligaments, a lot of them over my 40 years. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden at one point in time, everybody started going, well, you just should do closed chain, no hamstring curls, no leg extensions. You don't need to be doing straight leg ways to set the quad. And I was finding with some of those people, they were still limping when they walked. Sure. And they weren't getting full extension because they couldn't fire their quad fully to straighten it out over a period of time. So I think we get into a lot of where we think this is the way it's got to go. And I think we've done a lot of good things too of how muscles fire together, and you do have to do closed chain. But I think we've gone to more of the closed chain strengthening and forgot a little bit about, hey, we also have to individually strengthen muscle groups.
Sure.
To get the full power that you want and those kind of things. I still do some things like, a lot of the new athletic trainers coming out don't do hamstring stretching on return of rehab from a hamstring strain. And I started them out doing very light strengthening or light stretching. And they would go, what are you stretching that hamstring for? It just got stretched. Well, I said, I'm only stretching to the point of pain. We have to get the fibers to lay down along the lines of stress also. So, I'm explaining this to young athletic training students, and
Sure.
They think I'm crazy. And I take an athlete and I show them where their hamstring's tight, which could be causing a problem, and I get them started, and they're like, wow. that is helping me. if your hamstring's so tight it only lifts up passively to 45 degrees, that means your stride's pretty short and you're not reaching out very far.
As an old guy, I mean, in my 50s, I found a new appreciation and basically a new lifestyle for just getting fit, moving, working out, whatever. So I have an appreciation for that. And a lot of what you talk about, I think I'm going to try to apply to a 54-year-old as well, because I think it relates. Do you still personally work out? I mean, what's your, do you get, you have a certain time you work out?
Yeah, I still work out. I still work out, try to work out 3 to 4 times a week. Yeah. I'll ride a bike. I'll still do some strength training, but since I've been back from the league, I've been working on my flexibility, because I could tell where my back was tight. A few days ago, I could hardly walk because my back was so tight. And so I'm back doing some of the, the things that I used to do all the time. And it's helped tremendously. So still, the saying about let's keep moving as you get older is important.
It really is. It really is. I follow the motto Clint Eastwood always said, you got to beat the old man out or keep the old man out. And I keep living that dream.
I've heard that line too.
Yeah.
I don't listen to the old man. I just keep going. Yeah.
Exactly. There is no old man. It's just gray hair.
Yep, exactly.
Well, there's a lot of different directions we can take. And I know a lot of people, I mean, to kind of tie us into what Clint talked about last week, talked about the Zenith helmet and the revolutionary evolutions that the helmet had. But your product, the Kato Collar, I mean, the very first basic question I think I wanted to just ask you is, how the heck do you get this idea out of your head in ta-da, here's the Kato Collar? I mean, I'm sure there's a billion steps in there, but man, that's just fascinating.
It is interesting, and again, I give credit to the Lord and basically call it the Lord's idea, because I had a young man playing. I had the idea way back in Oshkosh when I was working in 1997, 98. We had a player by the name of Greg Hurley, and he'd been playing football since 2nd or 3rd grade all his life. And every time he got hit, his head got rotated to the left and would go get hit and would move that way, his left side would go numb.
Oh, yeah.
And, his junior year, it happened a few times. We'd get him back. We never missed any games. We'd work on it, strengthen. And he had a bad one, his 5th game of the year. And I said, okay, we took him out. We did, in fact, Pat McKenzie, who's the medical director for the Packers, was working with me at UW Oshkosh.
Oh, okay.
And so we looked at him, we MRI'd him, and we really couldn't find anything that would keep us from having to play football. And, they weren't as sensitive back then. But what we did over the next 4 games his junior year, he did not take a hit in practice. He practiced, but we didn't have him take a hit.
Right.
So we just can't get hit in the head. And he had another one, his 9th game. We weren't going anywhere. We pulled him out the 10th game of the year. But we rehabbed him all year long. I did my research. It was what they call a burner stinger, but there's more detail to those. It can be a pinched off nerve as it comes out. Usually that's what it is when it goes on the same side, or a stretched nerve if it's on the opposite side from the way your head goes.
Okay.
If it's on the same side and your head goes that way, you're usually pinching it off at the nerve root. And we did the strengthening 3 to 4 days a week, worked range of motion, everything the literature said. And I had him in what they call the cowboy collar back then, McDavid cowboy collar. And we had it on him to where we put it in to where he could get his head up in his stance enough to be safe to make a tackle,
Okay.
and so that his head wasn't down and locked down, because if you hit like that, then you're setting him up for a catastrophic neck injury.
Right.
Axial loaded compression fracture or rotation causes dislocation.
What was the cowboy collar made out of?
Kind of a foam type material.
Okay.
And so, and it worked pretty well for going straight back, but not at angles.
Okay.
And so we did all this and we rehabbed him. When we come back in the fall, his senior year, and the second day of contact practice, he takes on a hit in perfect position. And his head went to the left again, and it went down. I watched it on film. a dozen, 2 dozen times. He went down like somebody shot him.
Jeez.
I mean, he just went down. And as we came off the field, he said, I can't play football like this.
Yeah.
And I went, I got your back. I said, well, have you see Doc? We'll go through some things. We'll talk about it. I said, I got your back either way. Because he was in perfect position.
Right.
Shoulder to shoulder, helmet to helmet. It wasn't a direct helmet to helmet. They hit shoulder to shoulder, and then they hit helmets.
Sure.
He said that way, and he went down. And I'm like, and we did all the strengthening. We had it. He was 245, 250 pounds, playing linebacker. His neck was a V. How they got.
Sure. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a look. Yeah.
And the collar, when it was in a position, wouldn't stop it. And so I was praying for him that night, and I was just having a conversation with God. And I said, my job is to keep him on the field. What do I do? And he basically, God says, well, what do you think you need to do? Well, I've done everything I know to do, and it's not working.
Right.
I said, what do you want? And he says, I said, the only way to keep him playing is to keep it from happening. And the first thing that came to my mind was a collar, that cowboy collar, laying it flat and putting a bicycle inner tube in it.
Oh, okay.
So he could get his head back, but it would slow it down before it whipped.
Yeah.
And it had to be able to work in all directions.
Sure.
And so then my next thought was, well, we put air pads in helmets at the time. Let's put air pads in the collar.
Yeah.
And that was the idea. And in fact, I called it the Hurley collar in a file for years.
Okay.
And over the next, I shared the idea with some helmet companies, shoulder pad companies, and said, hey, I got a great idea for a collar. This will work better than anything's out there, and it'll prevent the injury.
Right.
Basically response I got over the next couple of years was nobody's going to touch the neck, too much liability.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I played with it for the next 7, 8 years, 9 years. And I would take the cowboy collar, lay it flat. If I'd figure out which way the head was going for the burner stinger injury, they were getting it recurrently, I would take some Belgian rubber or a certain thickness of foam, 1/2 inch, and mill it on the lateral third of the collar or in the middle third or on the other third. And I had 4 or 5 guys that it prevented it from happening, and they would wear that collar the rest of their career.
Where are you making those modifications? Like literally in the kitchen's counter?
Oh, yeah, in my training room.
Yeah.
In my training room, cutting foam, adjusting the collar, just doing it all on my own. I've been doing that for years, making my own braces and doing it for other things too, ankle braces.
Sure.
So it worked. And then in 2006, and it's really interesting because a friend of mine, he was the baseball coach's son. We just were talking one summer, and he was starting a new business of training and conditioning athletes, and we were talking about that, and I shared my idea with him, and he came back to me, and I was sitting there praying in August. I said, Lord, that was a great idea I had for neck collar. Whose idea was it? Okay,
Yeah.
I got it, praying for Greg. I give you the credit. It's your idea. I will give you the credit the whole time. If it's a good idea, bring it to fruition. 3 weeks later, the guy I shared the idea with in July comes up to me and says, hey, can I use your idea for a class project to win an award? And I looked at him and said, what do you mean class project? He said, well, I teach an entrepreneurship class here at MSU. I had no idea that he even taught that class. So I presented my idea to them, took the cowboy collar over, showed them how I adjusted it, did it, and said, this is my idea. And they wrote up a business plan. We entered it in, and I won $5,000 in 2007 and been working on it ever since.
Wow. Holy cow. That's incredible. That's awesome.
Yeah. And so, that's where it came. And we went to market in 2018.
How did you eventually get to the, for lack of a better term, the plastic, the hard shell? How did you reach that point?
Well, I got that because I wanted it to lay back flat. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I knew it was going to have to be a little bit harder shell than the soft foam because the foam wouldn't stop it.
Right.
So we had to make it so it was kind of wide enough and round enough, kind of a half circle, but not too far to the front. Otherwise, it would limit side-to-side motion.
Right.
It kind of comes out a half circle, a little bit wider. And I wanted it solid because when it does slow it down back here, it's got to prevent it from going to the end range of motion. Okay.
Right.
So to explain that, you and I can move our head and neck a certain amount of motion actively.
Sure.
But if I lay you on a table and I have you relax, I can move your head and neck 20 to 30% farther.
Sure.
In all directions. So the injuries occur to the neck, the burner stinger, and to the brain when that head's moving after impact at the end when it whips. And that end whip is past that end passive range of motion, because your neck can safely move through that passive range of normal range of motion, because I can move you and not hurt you through that motion.
Right.
But when it whips past that, that's when the injury occurs to your, whatever it is in your neck or your brain. So
Right.
I wanted it to be them to be able to have active range of motion, see the ball, catch the ball, get in their stance with their head up, make a hit with their head up, but it would slow their head down as it went back.
Sure.
What's interesting is it just came out that way. I mean,
Right. Sure. No, I get it. It evolved to that. Is it a tough sell to athletes? They're such creature of habits. I mean, Clint talked about some challenges of helmets. I can only imagine a new piece of equipment.
It's a very tough sell.
Yeah.
Because, collars used to be popular.
Right.
People love the old roll neck collars. The cowboy collar came out. They were wearing that. But the problem was they didn't work. So everybody's like, why would I wear this? It might look cool, but it doesn't work. Because I tried every collar I knew. I built up collars and everything on this kid.
Right.
Put the cowboy collar on until I started putting the foam on and add it and lay it back. I could find nothing that would work. So it's a hard sell too, because, my collar also works by slowing down the head after impact. And we can get to some of that in a little bit, but slowing down the head after impact is where you prevent the injury from that standpoint. But it's not as cool right now.
Right.
Collars aren't as cool. In fact, my collar, if you watch football on Saturdays games, NCAA Division I, you'll usually see somebody wearing it.
Hey, Newsa-Cast listeners, help us grow by subscribing wherever you get your pods or sharing the Newsa-Cast. Follow us on Facebook, X, TikTok, or Instagram. Northeastern Wisconsin Sports Advancement is a 501c3 organization. Our mission is to raise money, provide support, and bring greater awareness for youth sports organizations in Northeast Wisconsin. We do this primarily through the Red Smith Sports Award Banquet and the Newsa-Cast. Each year, we give back to the community through 3 initiatives: the Every Kid Plays Grant, the Gives Back Initiative, and scholarships to student athletes. Yeah, I was looking at the numbers today. You're in 60 colleges, 7 NFL teams.
We learn more than that now.
Yeah, okay.
Probably about 13 or 14 of them now.
Yeah, that's great.
Somebody's worn at 13 or 14 teams.
So at one time, at least, something I was looking on your website says 1,000 collars on the football field. NCAA, NFL,
high school,
school, exactly. All and it's funny you mentioned high school. And Mike Draheim. So I've been a long time football official. This is my first year not officiating, thus the hair. I can let it grow. But I remember encountering your Kato collar probably, I want to say 4 years ago, maybe at Menasha.
Yes.
At Calder Field. And I'm the umpire on that crew. So I'm supposed to be well versed in the rules, but we see this contraption, coming out of the shoulder pads. It looks cool. As soon as Mike is the one that explained, know that this is what it does. It makes total sense, but it's not addressed. And I haven't read the rule book this year. That might change, but it's not addressed. And NFHS high school rules. We ultimately, I think there was one game where we never told anybody to take it off, but we never were quite sure if we were breaking the rules or not. As silly as that sounds.
Right, right. Yeah, I know what you're saying. And the part that people question is the hard plastic.
Yeah.
You know, it's pretty discreet, and we've never had anybody, have anything. There's never been a collar that's ever been tested or approved. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
They've never, when our collar has made it in football, that's what will happen.
Yeah.
And not saying that's bad or good. It's the evolution of protection. But and so we just never thought it needed to be approved because it wasn't interfering with anything. And it's interesting. It's new. We talked a little bit about the paradigm of thought. Helmets have progressed tremendously since, like you and Clint talked about last week, from 2008, 9, 10, back then when concussion became a big deal. But you look at that and you look at concussion, and concussions have decreased. And Clint made a great point of it last week. Concussions have decreased at all levels. Number one, because we're not hitting like we used to hit. Rules have changed. Practices don't involve as much contact. Exactly. All those things have occurred. And helmets, no matter what the helmet is or how it's been, development, helmets are only in contact for an average of 5.5 to 13.3 milliseconds.
That's nuts.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're only in contact that long.
Right.
So that's the only time they can protect.
Yeah.
After that, they don't protect anything. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that helmets are necessary. They're viable. They've got, you've got to wear them because helmets, the progression of helmets came out, and you guys talked about them made out of the hard plastic. It went from leather to hard plastic. The first leather helmet wasn't even designed to protect the head. It was designed to protect cauliflower ear.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
And then leather helmet. And then that's when Teddy Roosevelt comes out and says, we need to make a better helmet.
Right. That's right. I forgot he said that.
Yeah, that's when the leather helmets started coming out. And then they went to the plastic. And the reason behind plastic and hard plastic was, less time on contact, less force transfer. So they're designed to deflect the blow. Helmets are shaped and designed to deflect the blow. At the same time, we're asking them to absorb all the force on contact, and we're asking that helmet to do it in 5.5 to 13.3 milliseconds. And that's not going to happen.
Right. Exactly.
So, and we've also created this paradigm of thought that, and you guys talked a little bit about the brain bouncing. First the brain bounces,
right?
Then the brain floats. Well, I'm going to tell you, it does neither one of them.
Okay.
I've had people say that it catches up to the skull. And I want to try to describe it to you in a way that's understandable for people out there. Fluid is within our brain. But let me ask you this. When you took anatomy class and you saw the pictures in the book of the brain, can you picture that in your head, in that cloud above your head?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yep. Yes.
Yeah. What did you see?
Well, you see kind of the scrambled, traditional look of a brain, but I do. Yeah. I know what you're saying with the fluid all around it.
Yeah, you see the parts of the brain, the cerebral hemispheres, the cerebellum, the brain stem.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That's what they show you a picture of.
Yeah.
But around that are three other membranes.
Okay.
And that outside membrane called the dura mater is right next to your skull, and the fluid is contained within that.
Oh, wow.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So now, and it's right next to the skull. I mean, picture, the experts say that the brain's constitution is like Jell-O.
Okay.
So picture a balloon full of Jell-O in a hard shell.
Yeah.
Okay. So now when you picture two helmets coming together, that front side of the brain, when they hit, wherever they hit, that front side of the brain is already in contact with that skull.
Yeah.
So it doesn't move. That front side of the brain doesn't move toward the skull. Now the back side, which is not attached, compresses.
Sure. The moment
You
it
see?
pushes it in. Yes.
Yeah, it's going to compress. Just like when a ball hits the ground, it compresses. And
Yeah.
comes down.
Yeah.
Now the ball will bounce. But now this is compressing. That brain, it's jello inside there, jello and fluid.
Yeah.
That brain doesn't change directions until the head changes directions.
Okay.
So the brain reacts to what the skull does. The brain only reacts to acceleration and deceleration of the head.
Right.
So now it's pressing, it's being pushed the other direction. Now the head whips on the back side.
Yeah.
Think about this then. Okay, you've got, and I've researched this. The brain weighs 3.3 pounds, 3 to 3.3 pounds. The skull weight, the whole total weight of the head weighs 11 pounds, approximately.
Okay.
Okay. I could not find anywhere where somebody told me what the skull weighed separate from the brain. So I'm going to tell you it weighs about 8 pounds
Yeah.
because you got the total weight of a head at 11 or so pounds,
Right.
3 to 3.3 pounds of a brain. So now, and then you put a 4 pound to 5 pound helmet on it.
Sure.
So
Sure.
now you've got 12 to 13 pounds pushing on this 3 pound brain, pushing it the other direction. Since it's like jello and compressed, the backside now has to regain its normal shape. Okay.
Right.
When it whips and releases past that end range of motion, now both sides are separate.
Sure.
And it's 3 pounds, 3 to 3.3 pounds of momentum versus 12 to 13 pounds of momentum, speed of movement. So that head whips, comes back and strikes that brain.
Yeah. Wow.
Now, and that all happens so fast. That's why everybody thinks the brain's on contact. But if that was true, we wouldn't have whiplash concussions.
How long did it take for you guys to get to that conclusion? I mean, to see, like, how do you get to that? Is that just technology getting better?
It's me telling you what I believe happens and trying to get the rest of the world to believe it. Because
well, I mean, I have no doubt it happened. I mean, it's fascinating to just slow it down that much for you to understand. And by the way, the Jello analogy is that really made sense when you described that with the balloon. That I like that.
Yeah, because if you drop a balloon full of Jello on the ground, it doesn't bounce.
Right.
It just kind of sits and regains its shape.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And if you drop Jello outside of a balloon on the ground, it splats. It doesn't bounce.
Right.
So the fluid and the water in there, the fluid inside there, cerebral spinal fluid, is designed to absorb the forces of the kinetic energy of motion that the brain creates from movement of the head.
Right.
So the brain elicits its own forces to itself. It's not the contact, it's the movement of the head,
right,
and the movement of the brain that causes force to be elicited. So, and to tell you how I got to that idea, and really when I started this whole process, I didn't know that my collar would work for a brain.
Okay.
I did not know that. And that was the Lord teaching me throughout the time, taking me to certain things when I'd just be thumbing through and seeing how they tested helmets.
So what was your initial thought that you were trying to protect? Just like concussions?
I was trying to protect the neck, the burner stinger issue.
Okay.
And that has become a bigger problem since we've gone to the smaller shoulder pads, which Clint mentioned last week.
Sure. We'll have to have another episode.
The reason for that is the head can travel farther now.
Okay.
Shoulder cords don't have the cantilever. They don't sit up as well. So now your head can move farther.
Yeah.
And when it gets forced beyond that end passive range of motion because it can move farther, they're telling me at the college and professional level, when I talk to other athletic trainers, that they're seeing about there was an expert that I listened to, quote unquote expert, that gave a talk on brachial plexus injuries, which is what the burner stinger's called in medical terms. And he talked about that it's up to 50 to 60% of college and professional players sustain this injury.
Wow.
And it used to be in NCAA back in the 2000s, they used to report it as like 2 to 5%. And I've always thought it was about 15% because I'd see, out of 90 guys, I'd see 3 or 4 or 5 a year. They would have burner stingers.
Right.
That has increased because the head can move farther because of the change of the size of shoulder pads.
Right.
So it's interesting. And going back to where I started studying this really hard about brain movement when Vices, who Clint worked for.
Yeah, the football helmet company.
Yeah, number 1 ranked helmet. I don't know
Yeah.
how many years by the NFL Players Association. And he mentioned them going out of business. They spent a total of $90 million and they sold for less than $3 million.
Oh, wow.
And if that was going to be, they were going to be the football helmet.
Right.
And the savior of football when it first came out, And I'm looking at that 4 years after they come out, they sell. I'm like, if that helmet's not working, something else has got to be going on.
Right.
So I really started studying the brain and looking at the Constitution and reading. And that's when I started looking at talking to people about, what they thought and all about this bouncing and all that. I said, it can't be happening. And if we don't absorb force, if absorption of force is so great on the front side, it's just as important on the back side.
Right.
And that's what we do with the collar. We absorb the force because we have pads in our collar, which decelerate it on the backside.
Yeah.
So don't let it whip to the stop, to the fast momentum, and come back with that momentum. We slow it down so it doesn't come back.
Yeah, I mean, again, as an umpire, I saw that quarterback gets his legs tangled up and he falls backwards. I get that collar absorbs that blow going backwards, back to the turf, and yeah, that's. I mean, it just works. And there's many situations. A lot of players get their legs tangled, and that collar is life saving.
Yeah, well, it's working for both the burner stinger and concussions. I mean,
sure.
The people I've had 5 high school parents from 5 high school kids who are going to make their kid. They'd call me before they bought it. They're going to make their son quit playing football on their next concussion, and 5 of them. 4 of them wore it their junior, senior year, and 1 of them wore it sophomore through senior, and none of them got another concussion. And they would call me at the end of the season and say, "You got to get this out there." Yeah, I know. I need money to get it out there.
Well, that's one of the questions I had. I believe because so you're when you're growing your product, you see that it's working, it's evolving into what it is now. But obviously, I mean, you probably don't even have any kind of inventory. You're just trying to get a few people to wear it, right? In the beginning to prove that it works. And then I guess, how do you bring this to scale to have, ultimately you're in, 13, 14, 15 NFL teams or more, that kind of thing.
It's being bought on an individual basis. And, we're blessed from the standpoint that we still have a lot of product. We still have about 900 collars, because that's what we spent our money on right before COVID.
Okay.
And then COVID hit, which really slowed us down. We had some people lined up at that time for our Series A round of funding, and everybody backed out because nobody knew football was going to happen.
Sure.
That year. And so it's been a struggle getting back. But we've still got collars. We're still selling them. You run into all kinds of things. Right now, I'm working on getting my website back up. It got hacked, and we got it back up twice and got hacked again. So my next week is working on getting that thing back up.
Going back back to the beginning just a little bit, that you have 2 patents, right? On this, like, what is the process to get a U.S. patent? I mean, I don't know if I've ever talked to anybody that's actually has a patent.
It's interesting. Basically, you're going to meet with a patent attorney, and you lay out. We have 2 utility patents, and we could, as soon as I get capital, I want to go for another patent that we can do on our product with regards to how we slow down the head with what we slow down the head with. But so you met with them, you work up the design, give them the pictures, they go through it. And we basically went in as an athletic collar, designed to decelerate slow head and neck motion down. So it's just a process of going through, you're paying your attorneys, you're paying U.S. Patent Office to review it. They review it. You come back, explain to them how you're different than other collars. They put it out there for a while so people can question or challenge you,
Okay.
on your collar. And we had a few people challenge us on what we were doing, and our purpose and design are completely different from most other collars. We were trying to absorb force and allow for a full range of motion, where most collars are trying to prevent motion.
What kind of person argues negatively towards this?
Somebody else that has a collar doesn't want you selling them.
Okay. Is there competition out there? Do you have, are there people doing sort of the same thing or no?
Well, yeah, the Kerr collar was designed, which fits inside the shoulder pads here to catch the rim of the collar.
Okay.
And I know I think they put in, and there was a couple motorcycle collars that were out there. But our purpose and what we were doing were completely different. Plus, we're expanding the collar to prevent brain injury.
Yeah.
And not our collars. My collar, when we went to market, wasn't just for burn or stinger. We're trying to slow down the head to prevent both brain and neck injuries.
Right. Well, I was going to say, out of curiosity, could this be applied to like a motorcycle helmet or a bicyclist or something like that? Is this collar adaptable towards other things other than football, but still have head injury potential?
I believe it is. Oh yeah. My goal is to get it into other sports, because I believe slowing down the head is just as important as protecting it on contact.
Yeah.
And so now it comes back to, with football, they're wearing their shoulder pads and everything's so tight, even larger pads, if they fit them the right size, they still fit tight.
Right.
So you can, with our collar, we had designed it to attach, and most of the shoulder pads have that, have the part of Velcro that you can attach Velcro to it.
Right.
You've got your male side and your female side, Velcro, they call it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can attach it to it and it stays in place. Well, that's where we run into some of the problems with high school. They still have the older models of shoulder pads.
Sure.
Legacy models that don't have the Velcro attachment. And then like hockey, people have said, you want to move into hockey? Well, of course I want to move into hockey. But you look at hockey pads, the shoulder pads fit much looser.
Sure. Sure.
And so my idea is eventually, and we've even experimented with it, and I've even had people as design, how people wear these tight fitting shirts, design it to fit into a tight fitting shirt that comes up through shoulder pads.
Yeah.
With football, I would like it to progress with football and Clint and I have talked about this before. Way back when I first met Clint, and we were talking about a safety system, because I believe the shoulder pad, helmet, and a collar should be working together to prevent head and neck injuries.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that. That's actually one of my questions. You guys tie all of this together. It's that trio that's doing that's the model to protect the head. And to protect the head and neck. And I even believe the shoulder pads right now, them going to the smaller shoulder pads, like I told you, it's increased neck injuries. It's also increasing shoulder injuries. Yeah.
I mean, you got high school. I've been high school kids that should be in a large or an extra large shoulder pad, putting a medium pad on. And I'm like, why are you wearing that medium pad?
It's almost as if the look is just more important than anything else that supersedes it all.
Yep. Yeah. And so, and Clint and I have talked about that. And I've tried to meet with companies and say, hey, I truly believe that it's got to come to a system for youth football. It's got to be a combination of shoulder pad, helmet, and collar. And that means there's got to be a change to a smaller helmet for youth.
Right.
I cannot make a collar small enough to fit in their shoulder pads and receive that helmet. And they don't need a 3 to 4 pound helmet.
Right. I know financial is a huge part of this, and budget.
It is.
It's at the high school. It's astounding sometimes the budget discrepancies in some of these programs. I mean, you know, a program like Menasha that's has Zenith and Visus helmets and have the Kato collars and they do. Yeah.
They rent our collar, which is cool because they rent it for $1,000 a year. So
yeah.
I mean, it's nothing really. So
no, absolutely. And I mean, they really do, like anything, change is always hard, but they really look great. I mean, I know what I wanted to ask you from earlier. Remember Eric Dickerson always wore that white collar on.
Yeah.
What was the purpose of that?
I think it was the same purpose. It's a roll, the old Nakona roll collar.
Yeah.
And the purpose was to prevent the burner stinger.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And that was back when someone wore it because it was cool. What's his name from Oklahoma? The linebacker.
Oh, Bosworth.
Bosworth wore it all the time.
Yeah.
Bosworth wore it all the time. And, but
he
I can tell you
needed
right
more
now,
than that.
they didn't work.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? They were cool, but they didn't work and that's why, like, the cowboy collar stopped being made about 4 or 5 years ago. They just selling what they have left, but it's because it didn't work.
Right.
And so that's what we've been successful at is we're working. I mean, I've got guys that I had a kid call me last spring, a year ago in the spring, and said, I almost quit football because I had what they called cervical stenosis, which is enlargement of the spinal cord. And he said, I was getting burner stingers down both sides. I put your collar on. And he said, I haven't had one since. And I didn't have to quit. Played the whole next year.
Specifically getting to the NFL with the Kato collar, what is it like and this was a question actually we asked Clint as well with the helmet, because he has helmets in the NFL.
Right.
I mean, that's got to be a pretty exciting process. I mean, what is it? The same question I asked Clint. What is the buy-in process or the trial process of an NFL team to use your product, to have an NFL player feel comfortable to wear it and then ultimately start purchasing them?
Yeah. Basically, how we got started in the NFL was Teron Smith, their offensive tackle, left offensive tackle, 8-time All-Pro, 9-time All-Pro. He was having a neck problem. And I remember, I believe it was in 2019 or 2020, Thanksgiving, watching them play on Thanksgiving. And he went out and they talked about, hey, he's got a neck problem. He's back playing. He went out that game. So I dropped a collar in the mail to their equipment manager. He called me and he wore it the next week, walked off the field and told him, best collar I've ever worn.
Oh, yeah.
Because it prevented his injury. And he wore it all that year and even part of the next year till his neck healed up. It was interesting because after that, we had some people call. Basically, we've gotten in the NFL because somebody's had the injury and they wanted to try it.
Sure.
And it's worked. So other people will call me and we'll send them one and they'll try it and it work. There was a guy from, I think, the Jaguars played safety last year, wore it all year.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because once people wear it and they, there's not as much contact as there used to be in practice and stuff. Once kids wear it and they have contact with it on and they've had a problem, they won't take it off. I got one guy at Jacksonville State that graduated this year that wore it for 3 years and never had a burner stinger. Their coach bought him new shoulder pads, and the shoulder pads had a wider opening and the collar sat so far back, he put it in there, but he got a burner stinger the first week they had contact. And he said, why isn't this working? I said, send me a picture. I said, the collar's sitting too far back. It's not slowing your head down in time.
Yeah.
And so he went back to his old shoulder pads. So I'm not going to wear these new shoulder pads. I'm wearing the old shoulder pads.
Right,
because,
right.
And so it's just because we've worked. We've not been able to market it. That's been the one thing. We've not had the capital to get out there and market it and show people how it works.
Right. That's interesting. You say that. I feel like this is a great product for like Shark Tank.
We made it through the first round of Shark Tank once.
Oh, did you really?
Where they had the tryouts, and we sent them all our information, and they never contacted us again. So we did make it where they had their tryouts. We made it through the first round. They called us. We completed our information for them, and
I've seen you on social media, YouTube, things like that. I mean, is that just you getting word out? I mean, do you have like a social team, so to speak, or what?
We don't have anybody right now because we don't have any money.
Sure.
So
whatever you end up doing, right?
Yeah, I end up taking advantage of like the situation that I've gotten with you here to let people know.
Yeah.
And we really fight. I'm working on with the UFL trying to do something next year. We'll see what happens. I've talked to them a little bit about it, but it's a thing where we haven't been able to get that Series A round of funding, so we're surviving on collar sales and just trying to keep our heads above water. I truly believe, I believe so much in this idea. I haven't quit because it's working.
Right.
If I could raise anywhere from $2 to $5 million, everything we've done, just so you know, everything we've done and where we're at, we've done on less than $1.5 million.
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah, and so I think if I could get the money needed to take this to the next step, I could also introduce a helmet into youth that would benefit, that you'd be able to create a safety system.
So that would be an additional product. You have an idea of a youth helmet?
Yep, I have access to a helmet that I believe will work for youth.
Wow.
Yeah, I have access to a helmet that was designed for something else that I believe would work. So,
are there?
And it wouldn't cost a whole lot to get it. So.
Yeah. Gosh, I feel like people would invest in that, but I can only imagine how. I mean, it's literally, isn't it just knocking on every single door and just always talking about the idea?
Yep, just trying to get somebody to believe as much as you believe.
Yeah,
and so, and the key thing is that we're working.
Yeah.
I mean, if it wasn't, if I took this idea and it wasn't working, but I have not had anybody call me. The first year, some of our pads were popping off, so we redesigned the pad because they were pulling off posts.
Sure.
Since then, we have not had a collar sent back because it didn't help somebody.
Yeah.
That it didn't work. And I don't say that to be braggy. I say that because it is working. Nobody has returned a collar because it didn't work.
Is that a difficult process to find and ultimately a manufacturer that can process it? I guess the volume that you needed or need?
We have it in place. If we got the volume, we have it in place with the companies we have. We own the molds that they're made out of, and we have the process in place that I could probably get within 2 months. If somebody was really interested, within 2 to 3 months, I could have enough collars manufactured to go wherever they wanted them to go.
Yeah. Gosh, I feel like somebody in Newsa-Cast land has to have a couple of million, right?
Yeah. It's just, it's being patient and trusting the Lord and knowing that you're working. I keep telling people I'm trying to save football players' brains, one brain at a time.
Yeah. That's all you can do.
Right.
At the end of the day.
Right. So.
Well, I mean, there's a lot more I'd love to talk to you about. I know we kind of said we keep it. We're already over an hour. I did want to just mention one, just speaking of an NFL experience, but you worked with Rich Gannon, right? I mean, he's a believer in this product, and you guys shot some video I saw on YouTube that is pretty cool, some promo video.
Yep. Rich is one of the nicest, most humble men I've ever met.
Yeah.
He is true, a very true person. And I think him and I talked, he got involved because he got to thinking about his father-in-law. Would he have survived longer if he had this? Bill Brown.
Yeah.
And he said, how he got, and he said the last hit he got was a hit that caused his head to go where he had the fracture of his neck.
Right.
When he retired. And so he looked at our product, got involved, and you won't find anybody better than him. He's a good man.
So how does he become a believer in the Kato Collar? I mean, how do you guys, how do you guys connect?
It was funny because somebody that I knew talked to him at a golf outing, and then somebody else knew him, and we basically contacted him. Hey, would you sit down and talk? And we were looking for somebody in football to be on our board of advisors.
Yeah.
And so we just reached out to contact him, went and had lunch, told him about it. He likes what we're trying to do. Thinks that I truly believe that he believed that slowing down the head, going beyond the helmet, is going to help prevent brain injury.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to do. I'm trying to get people to believe that you have to go. The helmets have improved. They're awesome. My personal opinion, and I'm not trying to blow smoke up Clint, I believe Zenith has one of the better helmets.
Sure.
And I think Orbit, their helmet being ranked as high as it is, will be worn more because it's lighter in weight than the other helmets. I mean, it compared to those other helmets, it's about a half-pound lighter.
Yeah, that's
and
huge.
I believe that's a huge difference, even on guys that are that big and that strong. And so I think he believed that we have something new that can protect the brain and the neck beyond a helmet.
You guys are doing it. I think, like I said, we could literally talk for another hour.
Right.
I think it's a great place. I mean, Jeff, you and Clint, I mean, I'm glad, like I said in the beginning, these last two episodes here, I was excited to just kind of to see, literally, we talked about how these all tied together and to get a chance to meet you, hear your story, hear Clint's story, but then also just understand that there's stuff out there now that's truly, truly, truly making football a safer sport. And that's, I think, ultimately what we all wanted.
I agree. And Clint was right. The game is safer right now than it's ever been. It is. It's safer right now than it's ever been. So people that say they don't want their son or daughter to play because it's not safe, I can truly tell you I've been around it 42 years, and it's safer right now than it's ever been.
Yeah. All right. Well, I love that. That's a great place to end. So, Jeff, we appreciate it. And
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on. I greatly appreciate it.
All right, Newscast listeners, you are about to hear our throwback. Those throwbacks come all the way back to those Red Smith Award banquets. This is a clip of the full Mark Murphy interview from 2013. And to get that full interview, you can tune into our YouTube channel on Sunday to see the entire interview. He was the main speaker. It was a fantastic interview. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out all of the things that we have going in the social world with the Newsa-Cast.
Red Smith Sports Awards. Banquet Throwback.
The Red Smith Award, of course, goes to someone who has made some unique contributions to sport in Wisconsin and also epitomizes the great values that Red Smith exhibited.
Let's give a Red Smith welcome.
Mark Murphy.
Thank you.
I love you.
Jeez. I wondered what you'd be doing if we won. All right, I'm not going to make you read a poem. So, well, thank you very much, Chuck. I appreciate those kind words, and it's a pleasure to be here. This is always such a great event. I do want to give special thanks to Mike Reese, tournament chairman of the Red Smith Committee. He's also a board member of the Packers and a real great friend. Mike, I know you're around somewhere. Round of applause. I want to recognize and acknowledge all the award winners, particularly Pat and Goose for their very deserving awards. And also to recognize the young student athletes. As Chuck mentioned, I was athletic director for 16 years and have seen firsthand how athletics participation can really be transformative and teach you life lessons that will be so helpful to you throughout the rest of your careers. And I applaud everybody with the Red Smith dinner, that what you're doing to further both youth and high school sports. It's really meaningful. I also want to acknowledge I've got Packers have a table here. We've got a number of our employees and board members. Why don't you all stand up? We've got a number of great employees who came down from Green Bay. You know, I've been involved with football at the collegiate and NFL level for a number of years, and I think you're really seeing a little bit of a sea change in the NFL. You know, with the spread offense in the college level, and you know, over the last couple of years, you've had Cam Newton, RG3, Russell Wilson, and certainly Colin Kaepernick coming into the game. I think the feeling always was, you know, you just can't run the quarterback like that in the NFL. And I think it's interesting that two of the coaches that are really implementing those are former college coaches, Jim Harbaugh and Pete Carroll, both having success. But I think RG3 is kind of the cautionary tale. There's risk with it. And it's going to be very interesting over the next couple of years, and actually probably over the next couple of weeks, to see how teams respond to that, what defensive coordinators do. But it's really a fascinating. I think it's good for professional football. You know, I'm also very optimistic about the business side of the Packers, and just talk a little bit about that. You know, I think as you look back over the last couple years, the biggest issue facing the league for a number of years was our labor situation. You recall, obviously, we had a long lockout and were involved in litigation. And fortunately, we were able to resolve that. Just kind of a quick story. You know, I got a little bit of recognition or publicity for it because it was really, I'd been on both sides of the labor relations. When I was a player, I was very active in the Players Association. I was the Redskins player rep as a player. Went on to become the vice president of the Players Union, and then actually worked for the union when my career ended. And then 25 years later, I'm in my position with the Packers and was on the bargaining committee for the owners. And my wife said to me, she said, Mark, when you were a player, you always complained about the greedy owners. And now that you're in management, you're always complaining about the greedy players. So I said, well, I guess it's your perspective. But, seriously, it was difficult. I think anytime you're going through a labor situation and a lockout or a strike, and, when I was a player, really fought hard to make changes. And I'll share a story. I don't know how many of you are aware of when I was with the Redskins, our owner was a man by the name of Jack Kent Cooke, kind of a larger-than-life character. And somebody asked him what he thought about my involvement in the Players Association. Well, he said that Mark Murphy, this is how Jack Kent Cooke talked, he's a fine young man, but I don't want him as a partner. Now, that we were pushing for a percentage of the gross. And, the irony is we didn't get it, but, fast forward now, and one of the very best parts of the agreement, and it's been in place for a number of years now, is the players get a guaranteed percentage of the revenue. So in a sense, the players are partners now. And I think, as we looked at the collective bargaining agreement, what we really wanted to do was to create a situation where it was a win-win for both management and the players. And I think we were able to accomplish that. We continue to have the guaranteed percentage of the revenue going to the players. One of the things that I thought was helpful is we really separated out into different buckets the different types of revenue. So, for instance, national TV, where there's fewer costs involved, the players get a higher percentage. For local revenue, where we have pretty significant costs involved, the players get a lower percentage. So that's continued, and I think that's worked very well for us. From a player's perspective, the other thing, and as I look to the future now, the biggest issue facing us as a league is health and safety, particularly all injuries. You're never going to eliminate injuries in football, but trying to minimize them as much as possible, particularly concussions. And I think the long-term concern, quite honestly, with concussions is that parents, many of you have sons and they're playing football, that will look at it and say, I don't want my son to play football. And it starts to erode at, number one, our future players, but just as importantly, as Goose said, our fans. The people that have played football are more likely to go on and become fans. So it's a real challenge. One of the biggest concerns, quite honestly, is we are being sued by over 4,000 of our former players about concussions. They're saying that the league, knew that concussions had long-term effects on players, and so that's a really tough situation. We're trying to work our way through that, and we want to have great relations with our former players. I'm a former player. Every day I get a letter from a lawyer saying, join the lawsuit, sue the NFL. And it's like, must not be doing your research. Just again, in closing, I want to congratulate and thank again the Red Smith Committee for all they do in this community and in promoting youth sports. And just in closing, I would say it was a difficult loss. Don't despair. Good times are ahead. And next year, I will be here. We'll be planning on how we're going to win the NFC Championship and win the Super Bowl and bring the Lombardi Trophy back where it belongs, up in Green Bay. Thank you.
All right, Tosh, that was Mark Murphy, featured speaker at the Red Smith Banquet in 2013. So it was always good to have him, and he actually was really an enjoyable speaker, and I'm gonna miss him as a Packer president.
Yeah, he's officially retiring at the end of the 2025.
I believe so.
Yeah, and that's actually written into the contracts, right?
Yeah, it's something like that for sure. You can, Tosh, you can run this country at 80, but you can't run the Green Bay Packers at 80. So
there you go.
Yes.
Exactly.
Well, it's forgotten, Tosh, and I'm never forgetting as we close out this show. So I don't know. Are you going to be forgetting something this week, Tosh?
Well, this is going to be, I don't know. I've kind of gone down this road before, but just construction. And it's,
Yeah.
I already want to forget. And it's not just, like the normal construction that we have every summer. It's the whole Interstate 41 construction that's going to take place. And, it's already, people just need to slow down and just let the construction happen. Don't gawk, just keep driving, and just, it's going to be 5 years of our time. It's going to be amazing when it's done. Just drive or take the back roads or something.
No, I hear you.
Start taking the back roads.
Hey, can I add one more to the construction headache? That's the internet thing where they've got where they bore through your boulevard and then rip up the sidewalk. Oh my goodness sakes. They're literally everywhere. And then they're just there for months on end. And it's a challenge as a letter carrier, Tosh.
I can imagine. So after you tied into that, what's your own forgotten?
Well, given the heat, Tosh, and this weather that we've had, being a letter carrier, how do I like to relax? Well, I love ice cream. And it dawned on me, Tosh, that with the Wendy's gone, I really haven't forgotten. It's more like I really, really miss the Wendy's Frosty. I can't get just the good old fashioned, a lot of times we're 99 cents, just chocolate Frosty. I mean, I love a good malt. We've talked malts on this show before, this podcast before, but I tell you what, give me a good old fashioned, just chocolate Frosty. Oh, they're so good and creamy.
All right. I couldn't tell you the last time I've had one, so I can't really remember.
I don't forgotten. Well, I don't eat a ton of them. But now there's no Wendy's left. They all closed. I'm not sure what happened, but
no, I think I saw a sign that said that at least the one over off of Oneida Street by Midway Road will be returning. So I don't know if that's all of them, if they're just rebranding or something, but I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, but they took the Frosty. They used to sell those at Goodland Field, a very similar thing back in the 80s. I don't know what it was called, but it tasted very much the same.
Okay.
I often thought, we have these drive-through coffee shops, have a drive-through Frosty or whatever that soft served little malted drink would be just delectable. I'd be Mr. 5x5, I tell you that.
There you go.
All right, Tosh. Well, we've forgotten a few things. How about what are we never forgetting? What's never forgetting in our world?
Well, this is a simple one and an easy one. And it's one that we should all never forget is just be freaking nice.
Yeah.
Right? Just smile at somebody, say hi, say good morning. Don't be rude. Just it's very simple. It takes a lot off your plates. It makes you feel better. Just be nice. It's free. Last time I heard, you didn't have to pay for it. So, and it might make somebody's day. So you know what? It doesn't take a lot. You don't have to be rude. Be nice to the people around you, your servers, whoever it is, thank them.
Absolutely.
It's pretty
Hold
simple.
the door.
Hold the door here and there. Yeah. We won't get into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very, very, very easy, and it doesn't cost anything.
No, and it feels good. The return is way better. No, I try to practice that all the time.
Yeah,
it does. It's so awesome when you just say hi to somebody. You can sometimes when you see them light up, that's a pretty good feeling.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, what about yourself, Joe? What are you never forgetting?
Well, Tosh, I've reminded this, and I know I'm never going to forget this, but when you and I started this podcast sometime around a year ago, it's kind of coming true here. Just the power of the podcast to tell the story, and we did that with these two episodes. We brought the story, the safety of football, to light, and we did that through conversations. And we talked about breakthroughs in football. I mean, we love the sport of football. We love that game, but it had to change. And we were able to do that and get the word out in a podcast form. And I think that's pretty cool. We try to bring awareness to the Red Smith Banquet, and we're kind of carrying that same message on. So it's, I'm never going to forget that. That's a pretty cool message. And, I don't know, gets me fired up to keep doing podcasts, Tosh.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have some really cool stories, and I encourage people to go back and check out some of our episodes, and check out the ones you know nothing about, because I think every single one has a good story. And, as we do this, we're going to shout out one more good story. I know this comes out on Thursday, but by the time the next one comes out, it's the start of the Olympics. So make sure that you're you're tuning in and paying attention to Maddie Wanamaker. And as she goes through the rowing, it's going to be spectacular.
Yeah.
And hopefully she can come home with a medal.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And hopefully we can talk to her when she returns. But
Yeah.
absolutely, let's cheer on Maddie. That'll be cool to actually know somebody in the Olympics and actually cheer them on with their heart and soul. So that'll be cool. Yeah, Tosh, that's awesome. And yeah, check out the Newsa-Cast. We have every one of our interviews. We're really proud of actually every single episode. They're really, really cool stories. So check those out. Hit like, subscribe, tell a friend, share. Check us out on social. All that stuff really helps. Leave a review. Leaving a review, they say, is huge. So do that too. But Tosh, that's another great show. Always a hoot. And till next week.
Till next week, you bet. Thank you for listening to another great episode of the Newsa-Cast. We'd really appreciate it if you hit up our social pages, subscribe, like, follow, and don't be afraid to engage. Head over to our YouTube channel to get exclusive content like the full interviews and speeches from the past Red Smith Banquets.
A huge thank you to Digstown for all the music in today's episode. Catch a gig or find them on Spotify.